Thank you, Mayor. I am here now to talk about the new protocol from ComEd that they have filed with the Illinois Commerce Commission that is going to be one of their operating procedures for 2012. I realize that I use protocol a lot, and I am going to try to use operating procedure a little more. So this year, ComEd introduced a new protocol for emergency response and planning. ComEd filed this protocol with the Illinois Commerce Commission, its regulating agency, for implementation and use this year. The new protocol has two overarching goals. First, it is intended to improve communication between ComEd and municipalities, and also between ComEd and its customers during major outage events. Second, it is intended to provide a guideline for planning for restoration of critical facilities before outages actually take place. So this new procedure has three major components. The first component centers around a joint operating center for municipalities and ComEd representatives during major outages. Second, ComEd is planning to improve the way that it communicates with its customers by expanding its telephone system and adding new technology to make it easier for customers to report outages. And finally, ComEd is improving the way that their annual report, which is the method that is used to tell us how their system performed for a given year. The Joint Operating Center is intended to be a physical office where ComEd can communicate directly with municipal representatives from a specific region, and it will be established only during major outage events. We're located in a region consisting of several communities in southern DuPage and Will County. To give you some perspective on the magnitude of the outage that would precede the establishment of this joint operating center, 36,000 customers would have to be affected for more than 3 hours in our region. This is equivalent to 2 Downers Grove, the number of customers in 2 of us. It's rare that this many customers would be affected by an outage, perhaps 3 or 4 times last year, but once or twice a year on average. And the purpose of the Joint Operating Center concept is to allow municipalities to have direct access to ComEd representatives to ensure that critical facilities are addressed as priorities during outages. And the goal is to make sure that municipalities are receiving accurate and timely information on restoration efforts. So in order for this procedure to function, ComEd has asked municipalities to compile a list of the critical facilities that should be addressed first in the event of a major outage. The goal is to make sure that places like senior centers or emergency operating centers aren't left at the bottom of the list while lower priority locations are restored. And while this list is pre-established, we will be able to change the priorities if conditions warrant. The next component is ComEd's communication with customers. ComEd has already increased the capacity of their call centers, and they've implemented a system for two-way text messages that customers can use to report outages and then receive information on restoration. And I would like to mention that residents can sign up for the text message system. It does require signing up with your account number on ComEd's website, and we have provided the link to that part of the ComEd website from our webpage. And finally, ComEd has committed to improving the performance data that they give to us each year. The report will still contain much of the same information. For example, it will still contain a list of the location, cause, and duration of each outage occurring in a given year, which is what we used to prepare our reliability report last year. However, this improvement comes with increased emphasis on providing municipalities with ComEd's system improvement plans. So instead of just providing minimal information on improvements to the worst performing circuits, as we get in the annual reports now, we will begin to receive more detailed tree trimming and smart grid implementation plans. And as I said, this goes into effect this year. They filed it with the ICC, which is their regulating agency, and we're beginning the implementation process. Okay.
Thank you. A couple concerns that we've had about this Joint Operating Center is, in my opinion, as well as it's shared by other municipalities, is that while there are certainly positive aspects of this, there are also some new obligations upon municipalities, and the two I'll just highlight is number one, as you can see, there's somewhat of a shifting of who has to make the decisions about who comes in terms of priorities on restoring power and rather than ComEd having all that responsibility, now it's sort of kicked back to the municipalities, which can potentially turn out to be more of a shifting of blame, if you will, rather than taking and maintaining responsibility for a service that's provided. Not that I'm complaining. But that is a serious issue, because if the responsibility is somehow perceived as if shifted to the municipality, we don't control the infrastructure, we don't control the delivery system, and yet I can see that there might be instances where ComEd says, well, you know, your village is the one that came up with this priority list, go blame them. Yep. Well, that's fine and dandy, except we don't control the delivery mechanisms. The other issue is that these JOCs are expected to be staffed by municipal representatives, and there's a schedule about who has to go where and do what, and that could potentially take a critical key staff member of ours out of our community to go man a JOC, when we would, of course, expect them to be here responding to our own issues, and oftentimes, or you could see a situation where the most knowledgeable person would be the one out at the JOC instead of here at 801 Burlington Avenue dealing with our local issues. So there's, with some trepidation, do we look forward to it. I think this is somewhat of a mixed bag. I think there's some benefits to it, certainly, and I applaud the effort to try to improve communication and responsiveness. Don't get me wrong, but I also think there are some issues that potentially either shift responsibility or blame to municipalities, which can create some headaches for us. So we'll see where this goes. But part of the reason why I'd asked for Allison to explain this is I think our residents at least need to know what's coming, so that if we have another outage, and I hope we don't, like we did last year, some of what's going to happen is going to be driven by this new arrangement, not all of which we have control over. No, I'm off my soapbox now. And as long as we're there, any questions or comments from the council with respect to the JOC or the protocol? Commissioner Schnell?
I agree with everything that you said. In addition, I'm afraid that it's going to raise false expectations on the part of our residents. And not only, you know, are they going to think we're prioritizing what, you know, when their house should be restored or whatever, but just the idea, or at least this is the way this has been sold on the media, is this is a new way of better communication, of restoring power, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there is an expectation there, when you hear that on the television, that things are necessarily going to be much, much better. And that may happen, but it may not happen. And my concern is false expectations. I think it would be beneficial if Allison's presentation, either verbally spoken or her slides, could be put on our webpage so that residents could look at it, and then if there are any questions, they could email them to the manager or to Allison, to really get as much information out there to our residents as possible. So again, there are not false expectations raised in a time when temperatures are flaring, ice is defrosting, refrigerators are going bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's just a lot of worry and concern. And we heard last year from a woman who thought some business on Ogden was being restored before her home, and her power was being restored down. I think that's going to be a lot of what people are going to think is happening, and games are being played, and why did the village say McDonald's should be put up before my house, or whatever it may be. So I think, you know, the more education we can put out there so that people's expectations are not raised and that the truth is out there, the better off we're going to be.
We will do that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Yes, I can hear the phone call now. Wait a minute, they got the smart grid, they got the protocol. Why is my power out?
Yeah. No, there's going to be all sorts of things. And
Why is my bill higher?
yeah,
It's going up 90 cents.
90 cents.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, all right. Again, off the soapbox. Any other questions or comments of Allison with respect to the ComEd protocol for emergency preparedness and response management? Hearing none. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, Allison. That's greatly appreciated. I think we may need to talk about this again as
Summer goes on?
yeah, the peak outage opportunities come closer. All right. Well, the next item I